Hello, welcome. My name is Mitch Finney, President of the San Antonio Catholic Physicians Guild, and we welcome tonight Patrick Rondolan and guest to bring us up to date on pro-life activities around the Archdiocese and in the San Antonio area. And we know that a lot has happened over the past 6 months, and look forward to the update. Thank you for coming, Patrick.
Thank you, Mitch, for having us. If you don't mind, I'm going to stand and while I address you, and thank you for having us. And on behalf of the San Antonio Family Association, it's our pleasure to come and share this information with you. I'd like to also introduce Mike Kanufke, who's Vice Chairman of the San Antonio Family Association, and our Secretary-Treasurer, Danny Petrie. And Danny also does our accounting and CPA work. And so I wish I could say it was only 6 months, Mitch, but it's been 18 months. And a lot has happened in 6 months. We've never had the pleasure of speaking to you before until now. This has been an 18-month battle, and so I'd like to start with you a quote. Some of you might, since we're in a university, and some of you are well-educated people, much more educated than I am, and but I start you with a quote that cowards die many times before their death. The valiant never taste death but once. Of all the wondrous things I yet have seen, it seems to me most strange, seeing that death, a necessary end, will come when it will come. That's from William Shakespeare. And this whole 18 months has really been about whether or not we had the perseverance to finish this fight. Some of you might be familiar with a movie called Braveheart. And there's a famous quote in here: "Every man dies, but not every man really lives." Well, we've had a chance to really live over the last 18 months and really test our families' patience and perseverance with us, but also our own resilience. And by the grace of God, we have some good news to share with you. There is, where's that? On December 17th, there you go. On December 17th, there was a significant vote that took place in the city of San Antonio. For the first time known in San Antonio history, the city council took a vote on a zoning issue. The zoning issue dealt directly with the zoning of an ambulatory surgery center, in this case really abortion facilities. And because, as you know, with HB2 passed in 2013, all abortion facilities in the state of Texas have to be licensed ambulatory surgery centers. That's up for decision here with the United States Supreme Court coming up, whether or not to uphold HB2 or not. But as it stands right now, all abortion facilities have to be licensed ASCs with the state of Texas. So this really comes into your field, quite a great degree in the medical field. So this, what you have before you, is what was passed on December 17th. And if you would get ready for the vote count. Here. Back in May of last year, through working with the neighbors of Dream Hill Estates neighborhood, we encouraged a couple residents to request or actually put in an amendment. Every 5 years, the city of San Antonio does an amendment process to the Unified Development Code. The Unified Development Code, shortened UDC, is what governs. It's the legislation that governs how things are, where they can and cannot be in the city of San Antonio. Well, every 5 years this happens. Citizens are allowed to put forth amendments to be considered, unlike the usual process where the mayor or city councilman would issue a piece of legislation to have something changed in the zoning law. Well, so in May, these residents put forth an amendment, a very simple amendment. And that amendment said, I'm sorry it's not on the top here, but the amendment said all ambulatory surgery centers shall be considered C2 or shall be zoned C2 or C3. Well, right now, and before that time, Unified Development Code, there had been no listing in the long list of the Unified Development Code, which is a matrix. It looks very much like the bottom of this, but it's a couple hundred pages. And as Mike just said, C stands for commercial, and R for residential. And so this 200-page list, this matrix called the Unified Development Code, says where things can and cannot be, where animal services can be, hospitals can be or not be. there's been no listing from that whole time of where an ambulatory surgical center can be since 1985, and when ambulatory surgery centers became licensed by the state of Texas. And so the amendment was put forth by these two residents in May, and went through a series of meetings and processes. The most significant thing that happened was that the development services took that definition and that amendment, that proposal that said all ambulatory surgery centers shall be zoned C2 or C3. They took it and they added a definition to it. They added a definition which is on the top there that you can read. But previously, all medical clinics and dental offices have been paired together in their definition, as you can see there. And what they did, they threw in what an ambulatory surgical center in that definition. And so they give it what's called a mixed-use definition, which we believe is an inaccurate definition. And so we began fighting that amidst the fight of the improper zoning at 2140 Babcock of the brand new Planned Parenthood South Texas abortion facility that's located at 2140. This is all fallout from that whole process. So this amendment here removed certain things but added ambulatory surgery center. And what it would have done with the citizens amendment and this definition would have opened the doors that all future ambulatory surgery centers, including abortion facilities, could be located right next to residential neighborhoods. How outlandish. There's only 2 in the city of San Antonio that are currently zoned C1. C1 is the lowest commercial rating. So C1 is where you would have closer to residential neighborhoods. And then you have C2, which is more intense use, and C3 is where hospitals are in the most intense use. Well, Planned Parenthood South Texas and there's a C1 ambulatory surgery center in the middle of Christus Santa Rosa campus, which is surrounded by 200 acres. So it's an anomaly in itself. So out of 73 ambulatory surgery centers in the city of San Antonio, there's 1 that's next to a residential neighborhood, and that's Planned Parenthood South Texas. And I'm going to let Mike go into that a little bit more, but continuing with this amendment would have allowed the next abortion facility or any other ambulatory surgery center to move in next to another residential neighborhood. And too intensive a use to that. So we began fighting it. Fortunately, we after 18 months of fighting this, we had built some relationships with a couple of councilmen, and in particular this one is what we call the Gallagher Amendment. And Councilman Mike Gallagher out of District 10 added this matrix at the bottom. And what it does is it's called a special use matrix, or specific use matrix. And it altered, while they didn't believe they could get rid of the definition. It was too much of an uphill battle to fight because development services had commandeered. They had basically stolen the 2 residents of Dreamhill Estates, their amendment, and they had turned it upside down. Matter of fact, it was so bad that those 2 residents hired outside legal counsel to officially withdraw their amendment from the city. And so then development services picked that amendment back up, said they liked it, and added their definition to it again, and started ramming it through the process. And fortunately, we had a major victory at the zoning commission, and the zoning commission did not pass it. But it continued through the process, and as continued through the process when it came up to the city council, Mike Gallagher offered a floor amendment. So what was proposed and what was slated to pass was that the development services redefined ambulatory surgery center amendment, which was the amendment was all C2s and C3s, all ambulatory surgery centers shall be zoned C2 or C3. But then when they add their mixed-use definition, it opens the doors that an ambulatory surgery center can be anywhere. Mike Gallagher offered from the floor on the council session on December 17th this matrix. And it basically says that if there's a new ambulatory surgery center, or if there is a change in use of the building, that there has to be public notification of the neighbors within 200 feet, and there has to be a vote by zoning commission, and there has to be a vote by the city council. So it severely limited the development services department from just being able to issue certificates of occupancies and ability of future ambulatory surgery centers, specifically abortion facilities, to move in next to residential neighborhoods. So it was a monumental victory in that case, but there is some work to be done. And in that case is, one, we want to improve the definition here. The definition needs to be separated out. Ambulatory surgery center, as many of you know, is not like a medical clinic or a dentist office. It's much more intense use. But it's not a hospital either. There's no overnight stays. And that was their big argument. There's no overnight stays. It's got to be closer to a medical clinic and a physician in a dental office than it does a hospital. The second thing is the continuous use issue. And what this does not address, and Councilman Gallagher made a very remarkable statement in his comments on December 17th, in which he said this specific use matrix, specific use permit, would have required Planned Parenthood South Texas to have a notification to the neighbors, go through zoning commission and city council. We don't agree on that point. And because if you're familiar, how many of you have been out to 2140 Babcock? Okay, Planned Parenthood. I know Clark and Mitch and Bill have all spoken out there at press conferences, and I want to thank you very much for your public testimony, your witness to do that, because it takes a lot of courage. You certainly led a Braveheart type attitude of every man dies, not every man really lives, so thank you for really living and being willing to be criticized for coming out and doing the right thing. But I forget where I was with that, but so you've all been out there. In that building, it's 20,300 square feet. It's a massive building, and Zone C1. There is a Mission Rehab, a rehabilitation business that takes up 4,000 square feet. It was there before Planned Parenthood South Texas bought that building under a company called Del Entero. And Del Entero is a Spanish word. The English translation means a front. And we should just be offended just by the sheer fact of the name, Del Entero, a front. It was created to deceive everybody and sneak into that neighborhood. Well, in doing that, they purchased the building in March of 14, and then they started construction on it. And after August 8th was a determination made by the city, and I'm going to let Mike go into that. But when they began construction on remodeling, retrofitting that building to become an ambulatory surgery center, Mission Rehab was already in there. Mission Rehab was considered a medical clinic. Mission Rehab is still there today. And because of that, they had what we believe to be considered a continuous use. They had a business in there operating as a medical clinic for that period of time, and it allowed them to do that. And therefore, they still would go under the radar. It wouldn't be caught here. So this is a huge step forward in an extremely difficult decision. The vote came out to be 7-4, and the mayor led with her leadership, and Councilman Gallagher, his leadership. Joe Pryor seconded the motion, and then Alan Warwick, Rebecca Villagran, Ray Lopez, Chris Medina, and Joe Pryor and Michael Gallagher all voted for it. The 4 people that didn't vote for it are actually the councilman for this district, I believe, Roberto Trevino, right, Ray Saldana, Shirley Gonzalez, and Ron Nurnberg. And so sadly they didn't vote for it. But that vote, it really came down to one thing, 2 things for them, was were they going to refute the development services process in which they improperly zoned Planned Parenthood South Texas and allowed them to be there, and whether or not they wanted to expand surgical abortion throughout San Antonio. And so everybody that voted for the Gallagher Amendment voted against that. And it really put some great supervision and handcuffs over the Development Service Department. Where does that impact y'all? Well, if you had a practice that was going to open up in a new building, or take over a building and change the use of it so you could occupy that building that was next to residents, you as physicians or any other type of medical office or dental office would have to go through these same hoops. So it's good information for you to know about, and as you talk with your colleagues and everything, is that if you open up a new office or took over a building that changed in use, you're going to have to jump through this hoop of a little bit more administrative work, in the sense of you'll have to notify neighbors within 200 feet. You have to go through the zoning commission for approval and the city council. But I ask you a question: is it worth it? Is it worth it to make sure that the next abortion facility that could move into a residential neighborhood, is it worth you having to go through that so that we can bring public attention and notification to those neighbors before an abortion facility moves in there? I think you'd all agree with me that that's absolutely worth it. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Mike and share with you. How much time do we have here, Mitch? I want to make sure we respect that.
15, 20 minutes easy.
I think you'll find that this information is particularly important and poignant for as we go forward, because there's work to be done, and we could use the Catholic Physicians Guild, your help.
How much time is it, Mitch?
20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay. We learned of this facility being open October 23rd, just like probably you did, through the San Antonio Express News. They're very proud of it. We were on alert looking for where they were going. We caught wind from Austin and from Dallas, and they said they're not going to build a new building. They've learned not to do that. Boston was very difficult, if you know what took place there. So they're going to retrofit another established building. So for 6 months to a year, we were looking around trying to find out where they're going to be. We got wind of it through the Express News, as you did. We immediately called Ron Nuremberg, who is the council member in that particular district. And we sat down with him in early November. We said, Ron, well, he couldn't make it. He went to Korea. But his chief of staff was there, Mays, with the Development Services Department, 3 or 4 officials, John Jacks, Kat Hernandez, these kinds of people, along with half a dozen of us. And we went in there and I said, I have an issue here with zoning. That's the issue we have. Oh yeah, we understand you guys. We understand completely. We're gonna go back and we're gonna look that up for you. We'll get it back with you right away. 1 week went by. We didn't hear a thing. Called him up, you know, really pushing him. Didn't hear a thing. 2 weeks went by. It was Thanksgiving. Well, it was Thanksgiving. You know, all of a sudden I started seeing this pattern. In early December, or December 16th, you can see the email on the top. I pushed John Jacks. He finally sent this to us, and it says, in essence, we looked at zoning, and it's not a problem. Thank you very much. Now notice that email. It looks like it came off a Hotmail almost. It's just a nothing email. There's no logo or anything. 5 days later, folks, 5 days later, after that email, we get this official stationery, and I'm just going to read the center part there, and it says, the use of professional office and laboratory testing are permitted uses within C1 base zoning district. However, and this is where it all, cold storage, which we didn't know what cold storage was used for back then, we were so naive. Cold storage, medical surgery facility, and hospitals are not permitted use within C1 base zoning district. In other words, no, it can't be there. Wow. We have an email as soon as they looked at it. It was incredible. So, this particular person was reprimanded, and he does not work for the city of San Antonio anymore. You might have seen the Ken's News report on this guy, but essentially he was pushed out of the city. And he was not pushed out of the city for getting a letter out and for the content. He was pushed out of the city because he did not bubble it up to his supervisors. Yet they do this all day long, you know, these kind of letters. So as you can see, as you can imagine, we had a fight on our hands. Well, we went back to them and asked them what's going on, and no responses, no responses. We tried to do an administrative complaint. Patrick will get into that, but we had to finally file a lawsuit in January of 2015. Well, the following page, if you look at it, or 2 pages back, I guess, the one with the yellow highlights, you can see all the different zoning codes. And the only thing I wanted to point out here is, if you look at C1, it's light commercial district, and it is between residential use and C2 and C3. And the key here with C1 is it cannot be larger than 5,000 square feet. Patrick already told you it's 22,300 square feet of killing facility. And yet it's within 50 feet of the sanctity of people's homes. It's incredible. If you've been out there, you know what we're talking about. Flip the page, you can see the photo, the aerial there. You can see the bottom aerial. That is highlighted in yellow. That is all the neighborhood. It's all residential. Completely. And if you know anything about this area, a half a mile away over on John Smith Road, you go down Babcock, past Warsbach to John Smith Road, you take a right, and that's the second abortion facility that opened up. And that's a Alamo Women's. Yeah. They do a lot of RU-486 there. It's really bad. However, there is not a zoning issue there. I repeat, no zoning issue. There's C2. The only thing is, down the street there's some apartments, but they really are not. There's really not a zoning issue. This has been a zoning issue from the beginning. So we asked them and pressed them and said, okay, how is that possible? They said, well, it's a materially similar use definition. What's that? Well, this comes off of the tamale and enchilada here comes off of their website, okay? By the way, if you went to look it up right now, they took it down after the lawsuit. It's not up there anymore. But essentially it said, if you have an enchilada business and you want to have a tamale business, the way you get materially similar use of the enchilada business, if they're zoned whatever you want, and you're over here and you want to do tamales, you just simply add enchiladas to your product and tamales, and now you can have materially similar use. We're getting into the weeds, but it's essential because that's what they're saying is the same thing. So they likened this facility at 2140 Babcock to a LASIK eye surgery north of downtown, right up here on Main Street. That's what they likened it to. And everyone here is aware, you guys are aware where we are, there's no blood in eye surgery. It's really not life and death of eye surgery. There's a lot of issues, but they said it doesn't matter. It's all because it's day surgery. The last page didn't come out right, I apologize, but this is important because once you have a materially similar use, it's a subjective decision that the director makes. And this is Rod Sanchez is the director. And he essentially said, it doesn't matter. We made it a materially similar use. Well, if you follow the schematic, you're supposed to then still go through zoning, and what got caught off here is they were supposed to also go through city council. Neither one of those two paths took place. It never went to zoning, and it never went to city council. So we have a broken city. We have employees that are rogue employees, mind you, rogue employees making decisions that the city council has no knowledge of. And there seems to be some kind of a cover-up that is taking place. We have a broken city. You just need to be aware of it. We are certainly, after a year and a half of this, we certainly are aware of it and some of the things that we've uncovered. Patrick now can pick up where I left off there.
Quick question, what's cold storage?
Well, cold storage, if you saw the videos, is the body parts in the business that they're in. Now, they claim that that is not the case here, Father. They claim that they've never done that. I have no reason to believe they have. However, it's still Planned Parenthood, and they lie about everything. So I don't know how you can believe them either. But I don't know.
Okay.
But the cold storage is a big deal in that business. So if you watch the videos from the Center for Medical Progress, it's a big part of their business.
It might be good. Any other questions at this time? Well, so what Mike just went through on this material similar use decision, this is a subjective decision that the Director of Development Services got to make. Yet it didn't follow their own protocol and their own training that was posted on their website since 2007. And the protocol wasn't followed. There was no vote by the Zoning Commission or the City Council, just like Mike said. So what's important about this material similar use decision here by Development Services Director is that this came in and they would have taken even the material similar use decision, the subjective decision that's supposed to go through this process, and with what Development Services did in basically hijacking the two residents who put forth that amendment through the UDC Unified Development Code process to amend the matrix, that would have said all ambulatory surgery centers had to be either zone C2 or C3 with the definition. It would have opened the doors. He wouldn't even have had to make a material similar use decision. It just opens the doors. That's why this is so important, because this created the administrative work and the oversight, because the boss, the Development Services Director's boss is Eric Walsh, Deputy City Manager. He's a graduate of Central Catholic. His boss is the City Manager. Well, if they're not doing their job in overseeing the Development Services Department, particularly the Director, and when he makes a subjective decision like this and it doesn't go through the process, who's going to do it? That's why this was so significant in what Councilman Gallagher put forward in putting this matrix here, because if it catches out of the three ways that for a new ambulatory surgery center to be caught, it catches two of them. If they try to move into a new building, or if they change the use. What we have to still yet to deal with is the continuous use. But this piece, this matrix right here, makes the Director of Development Services job much more difficult. He's got a lot more I's to dot and T's to cross, and he has City Council and the Zoning Commission and City Council to be accountable to, because his immediate superiors are not supervising him. So it's really, really significant and really a great victory for the pro-life community from that standpoint. What I'd like to do is take you through. So how many of you are either in management or are familiar with, have your own practice and are familiar with a term called certificate of occupancy? Okay, sister, you are. Okay, every church. I was presenting. I was talking to the Columbian Squires at St. Mark's Parish last month, and I asked, and Father Kevin Ryan, the pastor, happened to be there, and I said, "Has anybody heard of certificate of occupancy?" He says, "I have." And every parish has to have a certificate of occupancy. University Incarnate Word has to have a certificate of occupancy. Well, there's one business in the city of San Antonio that doesn't have one. Not an active one, anyway. Now, Development Service Director would tell you otherwise, and he did so on December 17th. But the fact is that every business has to have a certificate of occupancy, and you ought to go, next time you go out, next place you go to eat tomorrow. As a matter of fact, we were at a local establishment today, and I asked them where their certificate of occupancy was, because I was looking on the wall, and they didn't have theirs up. And they said, "You know, somebody else just asked about that the other day. We need to find it." I said, "Yeah, that might be a good idea." Tomorrow we go for our Taco Tuesday at a place called Taco Palenque, and they have theirs up. But I would encourage you to go wherever you go, look for the certificate of occupancy. A business actually can be shut down immediately if they don't have their certificate of occupancy posted in a conspicuous open area. And so many of you are shaking your head as you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it's required. And if you go to the next page, you start seeing some examples of certificates of occupancy that were from 2140 Babcock. One of the things we've done is we've become fairly good at requesting Public Information Act requests. Here in the city of San Antonio calls them open records requests. And these, what they sent us, we said they sent us all of the certificate of occupancy for 2140 Babcock. They sent us 13, and they go back as pretty far back to 84, and the newest one was 2008. And they range from anywhere from a massage therapy place that could have been illegal itself, based on the type of business it was, to rehabilitation, to the physical therapy. Now, none of these say Mission Rehab. Now, interestingly, Mission Rehab, which is the tenant, the 4,000 square foot tenant at 2140 Babcock, still the city has still not provided us a certificate of occupancy for them as well, which is very interesting because the whole parameter of being able to consider what Mike said, all day surgery is very similar, have a material some decision, came as a result of Mission Rehab being there. So they need to have a certificate of occupancy as well. They haven't provided it to us. So the newest one being 2008. Well, there's none that was submitted to us for Planned Parenthood South Texas. Interesting. On October 30th last year, my son had knee surgery. He had torn his ACL, and went to the Ambulatory Surgery Center on Spurs Lane, and where the Spurs doctor is, and had there. And you can see in the top right here, this one that's sort of different color. That's the certificate of occupancy there. So I'm sitting there in the waiting room, looking around, and I notice their certificate of occupancy, and I go take a picture of it. And very interesting. I'm sorry it's so small, but it says description of business, ambulatory center. So the city is designating on these certificates of occupancy what type of business it is. At least in this case, ambulatory center. Well, I know some of you are frequent Alma Women's Reproductive Center on Saturdays, praying there and trying to help women. And go to the bottom caddy corner from that one on the same page is the certificate of occupancy for Alma Women's Reproductive Center, and that was issued in May of last year. Now, these two ambulatory surgery centers were basically licensed at the same time in the state of Texas, and also given permission to go into construction, and also to begin operation. Very similar in timeline. But this one's issued May of last year, and it's issued description of business, medical clinic. Well, how does that happen? They're both ambulatory surgery centers. As a matter of fact, they're both licensed with the state of Texas as ambulatory surgery centers. why the difference? Why should there be more similarity in that? Well, the fact of the matter is the question was asked to them, the Director of Development Services, and he said, it all depends on how they apply. Well, we can apply in all sorts of ways, but there needs to be some greater restriction on the type of business you are. Much like Mike says, we have a broken city. So how in the world will we allow a city department? Matter of fact, Joe Cryer's Chief of Staff says, we have to dot our I's and cross our T's much more closely than this, because we showed this information. He goes, I can't believe that they can get away with this. They need to be more consistent in their approach. So in the testimony from the Development Service Director, he said, well, they're using their same certificate of occupancy as they had at their previous location at 104 Babcock. So in here is provided to you in the bottom right corner of the same page is Planned Parenthood certificate of occupancy from 104 Babcock. Now notice, it's zone C2. Yeah, we have a building at 2140 Babcock that's zone C1. The building at 2140 Babcock is licensed as an ambulatory surgery center of the state of Texas. The building at 104 Babcock is licensed as an abortion facility with the state of Texas. They're definitely distinct in how they were applied, how the building was. Planned Parenthood South Texas was licensed as an abortion facility in zone C2 at 104 Babcock. They left that license at 104 Babcock, switched over to 2140 Babcock as a licensed ambulatory surgery center. So you see all the inconsistencies here. And just to continue to turn the page, one of the interesting things is they continue to get away with different little things. On the next page, if you turn on the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little permit here. And that permit is regarding Mike's favorite obstacle at 2140 Babcock is a mesh fence. And
Crowd control fence.
Yeah, Mike likes it's crowd control fence. It's a temporary fence, but it's there all the time, and to control all the pro-life extremists, and from coming on the property.
Domestic terrorists.
And domestic terrorists as well. So we joke about that because literally we've been accused of that in two different letters. One, a letter from Planned Parenthood's own attorney at Strasburger, and they're both attorneys for Del Antero, the corporation that owns the building, and also Planned Parenthood South Texas. Their attorneys are at Strasburger, and they accuse us of participating in acts of domestic terrorism. And then second time in the paper, one of the Planned Parenthood employees called us extremists. I'd like to share with you a picture of none other than one of our own board members is sitting right here to my left, and his name is Danny Petrie. And I'll pass it around. But this picture right over here, I'll pass it around so y'all can see it. I can get this printed off. But it's the extremist Danny Petrie, and on his knees praying on the side on the hard concrete outside of 2140 Babcock. And so as you see here, the important thing is most times we're trying to find ways for government oversight and for consistency in application of laws. And that wasn't happening here. So the vote on December 17th brought to close an 18-month process by which in January of 2014, Planned Parenthood South Texas set up a new corporation called Del Antero Investments. That ownership of that, the registered agent of that entity was Alan Kramer, who's chairman of Planned Parenthood South Texas. On November 12th of 2014, that registered agent switched over to none other than Jeffrey Hans, Planned Parenthood CEO and president. So it's common ownership. In March of 2014, Del Antero purchased the building at 2140 Babcock. August 8th of 2014, the city Development Service Department made a decision to allow them to begin construction at 2140 Babcock to retrofit it to become an ambulatory surgery center.
You know, I should point out that there's 60 days of waiting period between the time they get the construction permit and the time that they get complaints. They knew not to tell the San Antonio Express News until October 23rd, so the 60 days didn't run out because nobody knew where they were going. So, this is the way Planned Parenthood works.
I think it was October 11th, so it was just 4 days over
Yeah.
the 60-day mark, but a good point. And so October 11th, we find out in San Antonio Express News where the location is. We'd already began the process of looking for that location several months prior to that. And it's December 16th, in which Mike told you about the email that came to us. And then December 22nd, a letter from Trenton Robertson saying that no, it was inappropriate to have cold storage and medical surgery at 2140 Babcock, a C1 zone facility. January 18th. So in that time, we took that letter, that December 22nd letter, and we actually filed an appeal within that 60-day time frame. Matter of fact, I believe it was January 2nd or 3rd of 2015, so just over a year ago from now, we filed an appeal with one of the residents from Dream Hill Estates. That appeal was rejected. We immediately turned around through the use, I asked him to be here tonight so I can meet him. His name is Dennis Drouillard, a former assistant city attorney, a great attorney, and a very devout Catholic. He turned around and filed for what's called a declaratory judgment action, and to get the state district court to act to shut down construction at 2140 Babcock, and to honor that appeal. That appeal was made to the Board of Adjustments, and there's multiple boards that Development Services has to deal with. Board of Adjustments dealt with zoning issues, and in that regard, so in that. We were given an immediate hearing on January 18th, and that hearing, it was presided over by a man named Judge Saul Cassett III. I'm going to pass this around, you can see his quote. But he, in taking all the testimony that day, one of the interesting things he said to one of the residents of Dream Hill Estates who was testifying, he leaned over to her and goes, "I don't blame you. I wouldn't want a Planned Parenthood next to my neighborhood either." Well, can you imagine? We're sitting in the chamber and our jaws about dropped when he said that, and that's exactly what it is. Who wants an abortion facility, any ambulatory surgery center because of the intensity of the use, but especially an abortion facility within 50 feet of their house? I remember back, I live up at 1604 and 281, I remember back in the late 90s, early 2000s, Porter Loring Mortuary tried to move in their new funeral home at Gold Canyon in 1604, and there was a major fight over that with the residents of Gold Canyon. And now it worked out, and they were able to move in, but it was done with public notification. It was above board. No time in the city of San Antonio, in the history of San Antonio, has a business been treated like Planned Parenthood in South Texas. Now we believe through our work that this started back during, and it did start during the Julian Castro administration, and based on the information we have, he was absolutely participating in it. So was Ron Nirenberg, and so was Rod Sanchez, Development Services. Now, those people being the Catholic Physicians Guild of San Antonio, important that you know, Julian Castro says he's Catholic. So does Ron Nirenberg. Actually, he says he's part-time Catholic. And then Rod Sanchez is a parishioner at Our Lady of Atonement, and which is very surprising in itself. So important that you know what's happening here. So after January 18th, this court hearing, the next major thing that happened was on March 20th were depositions. And the depositions of Trenton Robertson, the young man senior city planner who wrote the letter on December 22nd, and also a woman named Margaret Paul. And one of the things that came out of there is what Mike alluded to was that pressure had come to him and his job was threatened by none other than the Development Services Director's office as well as the City Manager's office. Now the interesting thing about that is it opened the door for us to have 23 more depositions, including the City Manager. Nobody's deposed the City Manager on a case like this ever, and she had been deposed in a lawsuit for many times, and so we were very enthusiastic. Unfortunately, in the process of this, our own plaintiff, resident of Dream Hill Estates, received a request for a videotape deposition herself, and due to family circumstances, she decided she didn't want to go endure that, and unfortunately withdrew her case. And so that left us without a lawsuit that could have really changed what happened at 2140 Babcock and the zoning. So fast forward, and as our time's up, unfortunately right now it seems that 2140 Babcock, Planned Parenthood is there to stay, except for by the grace of God and the work of the Holy Spirit and us being the hands and feet of Jesus Christ to make that happen. And that's where, on a go-forward basis, one of the things that I would share with you is that, if we pass that down that way, Danny, we need to do something. We have to act in a different way, and we have to bring to light and be a source of care in the most primary social justice issue that exists, and that's the support and defense of life. Not just for the baby, but for the woman as well. And we have a situation which, as we all know, so the promotion of abortion, particularly surgical abortion, in that case, but all abortion, chemical and direct, promotes irresponsibility on the man's part and the breakdown of the family. The man doesn't stick around, he learns to be able to abuse women and run away. The women get left holding the bag and put into a situation where they feel like they don't have a choice. We need to provide them with choices. We need to be there to help them. And so we are looking currently, as that sheet right there, Clark, will pass that by, we're looking currently to buy a building very close to 2140 Babcock, and for it to become a life center, in which we will be, it'll be accessible to all, particularly Catholic crisis pregnancy centers, but any crisis pregnancy center that wants to work with us. And we'll also have classes there, because one of the things that's happening right now is that as the unpopularity of surgical abortion as it becomes more and more unpopular, and polls continue to tell us, one came out last week saying that that surgical abortions are even more unpopular, and we see that turn. I think it's up to 83%.
87% of America is against it. Yeah.
Against surgical abortion. The push now becomes to chemical abortions.
So it used to be 83% said Planned Parenthood has its place just a couple of years ago. So it's really flip-flopped.
Really flip-flopped, where 83% are against surgical abortions. They're bloody, they're unpopular, and so the push becomes towards chemical abortions. There are some entities in the city of San Antonio that have to be identified and you need to know about. This sheet right here deals with a curriculum called Big Decisions. Big Decisions is a curriculum put out by Healthy Futures Texas. Healthy Futures Texas is, unfortunately, our own mayor sits on the board of it currently. We've been talking to her about getting off that board and how important it is to do so. But it receives lots of support from many people in office. It's drug-based sex education. So they will talk about abstinence, about that much. And the rest of it is all about contraception, particularly condoms, how ineffective they are, and they drive them to what's called the pill, that you all have heard of, the shot, Depo-Provera, and the implant, Nexplanon, is the latest and greatest.
Is this in the school system?
This is in the school districts. Northeast ISD, South, 17, there's 17 school districts in here in the city of San Antonio. At least 8 of them have adopted it, including Northeast ISD, our own independent school district, and it's expanding. It's expanded to Round Rock. They are looking to push it throughout the state of Texas. And in there, not only does it push chemical contraceptives, we have this on our website and Facebook page, San Antonio Family Association, but also there's a paragraph in there that says that if your religion tells you that sex before marriage is wrong, they are oppressing you. So it's an affront to religious freedom. And so they believe, the woman named Janet Riolini, Dr. Janet Riolini, is the author of this curriculum. Dr. Janet Riolini is one of the biggest sponsors and promoters of Planned Parenthood South Texas in the city of San Antonio. There's a direct link between Healthy Futures Texas and Planned Parenthood. Matter of fact, we had shown some of this evidence on our Facebook page, and since that time, Healthy Futures Texas has removed every link to Planned Parenthood off their Facebook page. And so they're trying to separate them, to create some distance between them. But in that, there are some other organizations you need to know about that are very important that are promoting this chemical contraceptive.
Girls Inc.
Find it for me. Girls Inc. is in cooperation with Healthy Futures Texas. Also, Project Worth is involved in it. And then SA 2020, there's 11 initiatives within SA 2020. This is Julian Castro's brainchild, at least he's credited with it. But the 11th initiative, which is the Family Initiative, is laced with chemical contraception promotion and population control. The next phase of SA 2020 is called SA Tomorrow. And SA Tomorrow is just being rolled out. One of the biggest promoters of that is none other than Ron Nirenberg, City Council District 8. And so it's very important that these links in the armor, of their armor, are exposed from a standpoint of the promotion of chemical abortion. And we have to deal with it. They're planning on 1 million more people moving into San Antonio over the next 20 years. So Project SA Tomorrow is all focused on this growth. And so it seems as if, based on what they're proposing, is that we're going to make sure that we reduce all teen pregnancies. And we reduce teen pregnancies not by teaching them chastity, not by teaching them virtues or responsibility or self-control. We teach them to go do whatever they want to do.
You mean reduced teen, you mean birth?
I'm getting there. They're not doing it by chastity or teaching that. They're doing it by have all the sexual acts that you want, but take the pill, take the shot, take the implant, so that you don't get pregnant and you can do me now, baby later. That's one of their slogans, me now, baby later. Well, as many of you know in this, is that doesn't prevent conception from taking place, but it will chemically kill that child in the womb if she's conceived a child. And very dangerous. Depo-Provera, and Bark and Mitch can tell you better than I can, but and Bill, but use that more than 2 years, and it's irreversible bone density loss to that young female, and very dangerous. Triple black box warning on it. And the city, on February 4th, just coming up the second anniversary, February 6th of 2014, new program that was passed by Julian Castro and 9 other city councilmen. The one lone vote was Mike Gallagher, in which they created a new program called Adolescent Health Care. Adolescent Health Care, it's an ordinance called Adolescent Health Care Ordinance, passed on February 6, 2014, uses over $900,000 of taxpayer dollars, new money, new program, to chemically sterilize teenage girls, not 13 to 19, who qualify for Medicaid, to give them Depo-Provera, the shot, and Nexplanon, the implant. That's the sole purpose. Administered by the San Antonio Metropolitan Health District through Bear County and University. And so this is in an effort, in all these coordinated efforts, to reduce population, particularly of the teen birth rate of teenagers. They can't catch them necessarily on the first time. They want to reduce the second and third, all the ones after the first one, and identify those girls and make sure that they're chemically sterilized so they would not be giving birth, not necessarily conceiving, but not giving birth in that circumstance. SA Tomorrow is whole focus on 1 million new people moving into San Antonio, reducing the teen birth rate so that those people can move in, we can have a sustained viability of the city. So why is it so important? I come back to this vote again. This is monumental. This is something to work on. Not only did Councilman Gallagher made his very first vote, very first motion on City Council, but also his very first vote was against the Adolescent Health Care Ordinance. There were 12 of us that presented that day on February 4, 2014, and he said, the evidence is overwhelming. I could never vote for this. Unfortunately, the rest of the City Council all voted for it. This is monumental, not because Councilman Gallagher proposed it, but because it was proposed on the floor. It wasn't slated. This is something that interrupted the development services process. It was monumental to have something from the floor pass. It wasn't slated to pass. Second, it puts handcuffs and oversight on the development services in a way that the city manager and the assistant city manager did not approve of, nor did development services. Third, all new buildings and change of use will be detected and given public notice to everybody. This will begin a wave in which we believe will be an opportunity for us to pass some pro-life legislation throughout San Antonio and to help reclaim San Antonio. And we all know the city of San Antonio is actually the city of St. Anthony. As Archbishop Gomez said in one of his letters, one of his 2 letters to the pro-life community, to everybody in the Archdiocese of San Antonio, but it addressed life issues. This is a mission city. It was founded on Christian principles. It's time for us to reclaim it. And we appreciate you all having us here today, and we appreciate your participation in our press conference that we have. We'll have our last press conference this coming Thursday. As far as our regular Thursday press conference, it'll be this Thursday. It'll be our 58th, I think it's 58th area, is that right?
Right.
58th Thursday press conference. And Harry's been our videographer for every one of them. And so we appreciate his service as well. He came here from California. He's actually one of the primary people who trained Lila Rose out in California. So his claim to fame, but he's got a lot more fame with us in his endurance. And so we appreciate his work. But so this Thursday will be our last regular press conference to wrap up everything that happened over the last 18 months. We will have 2 more press conferences coming up in February. One on February 4th that deals with Bexar County, and the Bexar County Commissioners Court passed some legislation back in 2014 as well that attacked the marriage and the family. Without going into that, the next day will be our press conference that deals with the City of San Antonio on the 2nd year anniversary of to commemorate the adolescent health care ordinance, and that'll be downtown in front of City Hall. And so all of our events and everything are posted on our website at San Antonio Family Association as well as on Facebook. There's also one of our offshoot missions is called Blood Money SA. And typically, Blood Money SA is where we put all the negative stuff, dirty stuff. And it's important for people to know, but we like trying to be more constructive and positive and affirming on San Antonio Family Association's sites. Excuse me. But on Blood Money SA, you'll see some things that are a little more cutting, a little more to the point, and sometimes have to be negative to expose the truth. Like Danny, just 60 seconds and share with them some of our outreaches, what we're doing to help the youth and families in San Antonio.
Well, Mike shared with me a few months ago a book called Boys to Men. It has to do with the transforming power of virtue. And I was also asked to be a family life merit badge counselor for the Boy Scouts. And so I asked Boy Scouts, what is your Scout law? And they have to all learn it in order. A Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Well, it's a list of virtues. And I explained that to them, and I said, well, what does it mean to have a list of virtues to live by? And so we have a San Antonio Family Association has, well, it's kind of like a human and Christian virtues list, okay? And it's a nice visual. And I went down. My son goes to Central Catholic, and they had a speaker come and talk to how boys learn different than girls. And one of the things is that boys are more visual. And if you put a visual out in front of a boy, he's going to embrace whatever that you're going to share with him. And so this is a neat visual because it lists the virtues, and then it has a list of virtues underneath them that kind of fall underneath the cardinal virtue. And so I shared that with the boys, and it's been a real, I think, eye-opener for a lot of the boys, and what it means to have a virtue, and a virtue being a muscle that we have to constantly exercise. And gave them examples of what that means. And so it's been a real good tool. And I on the back side, there's a guide to good decision making to find happiness and joy. And I think this order of law kind of puts, perspective in our decision making. And one of the things that I learned was that Aristotle did a treatise on virtues and why to live a virtuous life, and it's to have friends. And St. Thomas brought it into the church so that we can be friends with God and Jesus. Jesus calls us friends. And so I really think this is a great way to share the virtues and share it with our youth and with our community. So you feel free to take as many of these as you like. We have lots more of these up here.
So the San Antonio Family Association, we thank you for your participation, your attention tonight. We particularly thank you have participated in our press conferences to speak out for life and talk about how important it is in the medical community to abide by that Hippocratic oath that seems to be forgotten these days, and to protect life and to always do no harm to begin with. So we stand with the Catholic Physicians Guild of San Antonio. But thank you for having us here tonight, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Patrick. A lot of work, and we appreciate it very much so. Just an interesting note, after I try to go to 2140, and parking's not always the easiest thing, I asked my friend who's a realtor, I said, can you find me an office building right next door? And there's not much available.
Right.
But just I know you'll open looking and stuff.
If you go over there, the triangle, there's a triangle when you go into West Beverly May. They were supposed to put up no parking signs in that triangle. They failed to do it. So just so you know, make sure you're pointing the right way, but that's available to you.
Okay. Yeah, and then we started parking on that other
Yeah.
side. So.
I had heard a Catholic group had already bought property in front of 2140 Babcock. Not yet.
Not to our knowledge.
Not to
You
our
might
knowledge,
have
but-
heard rather than not to.
Do you know what group?
No, probably you all were thinking about it, and I just heard it had happened.
Oh, okay.
So it hasn't happened.
We wish that were so.
The
If
Coalition for Life took a stab at it, but I don't know where they ended up.
Do you want to know that? Is it Easter Seals across the street?
Yes, it is, and they are pro-abortion, as you know. And so is the adolescent health care, Clarity, is also pro-abortion. So we're fighting to pro-abortion facilities.
Their building is for sale. Clarity's building is for sale.
Okay,
They,
good.
they,
Well,
want,
it's
they want
interesting.
7 figures for it, though.
Interesting, one of their employees is Natural Womanhood.
Yes.
Yeah, we know that.
Figured so. So, but we appreciate all that. Just to kind of quickly wrap a few things up, just again, reminder on the health fair on the 23rd of January, not October.
Mitch,
go ahead.
I'm going to send an email out on that so that everybody sees the information.
Yes, if we can see that. Last thing we can get to, but I want to talk to Sonny and anybody around for officers for the upcoming year. So as Sonny says, so the president shows up with a white mask, we'll make sure that we have the right person there. And we'll get that done. Our next meeting, I missed it, I guess, at 3 this morning, but February 1st is a Monday, and that one will be at Atonement. So that's a shorter time here, just 3 weeks away. But February 1st at Atonement will be our next meeting. Anybody else have anything pressing or want to bring up? And if not, we'll close with prayer, and then we'll get back at February 1st. But again, if any of y'all can make the health fair, which is between now and then, please do so, and we'll show some support. But we can pray in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for your mercy, your grace. We thank you for your love in the season of Christmas that we just completed, and the life you give us. We thank you for life and the gift of that. We thank you for all those who work so hard to defend life and to try to share your truth. Guide us in all that we do, the decisions we make, and we pray for all those we serve, and help us to serve you in the patience that we see. Through Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. How about a blessing from Father?
Oh, yeah.
May the Lord bless us to proclaim the good news in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father.
Okay.